vessels of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations.
So we have a special envoy today.
I didn't know there were any guests at the retreat.
There aren't.
No one is to know about this. This guy's dad was a pain in the ass back in the Cesar Chavez days. Now it's the kids' turn. You know, and he's showing us imploding buildings. Simple Hollywood special effects. Giving this guy 20 minutes is about 19 minutes more than he deserves. He should go back to Hollywood and he should enter rehab and chase some skirts. You're going to keep your mouths shut. Do you understand?
Yes, sir. Charlie.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Thank you so much for taking time out of your demanding schedule, sir.
Yeah, well, the nature of your request seemed like something I should carve a few minutes out for.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Yeah?
Oh, of course. Please. Well, I should start out by pointing out to you, sir, that I voted for you as your promises of hope and change, transparency and accountability, as well as the concept of putting the government back into the hands of the American people, struck an emotional chord in me, which I hadn't felt in quite some time, perhaps ever.
Well, I appreciate that, Charlie. Big fan of the show, by the way.
We just experienced our first 9/11 anniversary with you as Commander-in-Chief.
Yes, a very solemn day for our nation.
Now, am I to understand, sir, that you fully support and endorse the findings of the Commission report, otherwise known as the official story?
Do I have any reason not to?
Are you aware, Mr. President, of the recent stunning revelations that 60% of the 9/11 commissioners have publicly stated that the government agreed not to tell the truth about 9/11, and that the Pentagon was engaged in deliberate deception about the response to the attack?
I am aware of certain infighting during the course of a very thorough, long investigative process.
Mr. President, it's hard to label this type of friction as infighting or make the leap to thorough, when the evidence I insist that you examine is statement of fact. If you'll notice, Mr. President, on page 1 of the dossier, dated August of '06 from the Washington Post, the statements of John Farmer, who is the former senior counsel to the 9/11 commissions. His statement, I was shocked how different the truth was from the way it was described, as well as the statements of Commissioner Max Cleland, an ex-senator from Georgia, who resigned stating, "It is a national scandal. This investigation is now compromised, but this White House wants to cover it up."
Mistakes were clearly made, but we as a people and a country have to move on.
Sir, how can we focus on the future when the Commission itself is on record stating that they still do not know the truth about 9/11, and in fact it has been the pretext for the systematic dismantling of our Constitution and the Bill of Rights? Sir, with all due respect, your administration is reading from the exact same playbook as the Bush administration.
And I'm telling you that we must move forward. We must endure these dangerous and challenging years ahead of us.
I don't believe we can move forward. Does it not bother you, Mr. President, that it only took 5 hours for Donald Rumsfeld to recommend a full-scale offensive on Iraq?
No, I'm not aware of that claim.
Well, sir, I have the proof, Mr. President, along with scores of documents and facts that I'd like you to look at here.
All right. Sure to come prepared, Charlie.
So I'd like to direct your attention to the stack of documents in the folder I just handed you. The first in the top is entitled Operation Northwoods. which is a declassified Pentagon plan to stage terror attacks on U.S. soil to be blamed on Cuba as a pretext for war. And of course, the most famous, the Gulf of Tonkin incident here.
We're in a place where we as a people in the country have to move on. It's all ancient history.
Well, fair enough, sir. Then let's talk about recent history. The next document in your folder was published by PNAC, and it's entitled Rebuilding America's Defenses, and was written by Dick Cheney and Jeb Bush. And to quote from the document, sir, "The process of transformation, even if it brings revolutionary change, is likely to be a long one, absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor." Your thoughts on this statement, Mr. President?
In matters of national defense, all scenarios must be carefully considered. But in this case, I have to tell you that the families and yourself have to understand that we're doing everything we can to protect you.
Mr. President, I realize that we're on very short time here, so please allow me to run down a list of bullet points that might illuminate some reasons why we don't embrace the warm hug of federal protection.
Of course, fire away. You've come this far.
Please keep in mind, Mr. President, that everything I'm about to say is documented as fact and part of the public record. First, on the FBI's most wanted list, Osama bin Laden is not charged with the crimes of 9/11. Number 2, FBI translator Sibel Edmonds was dismissed and gagged by the DOJ after she revealed that the government had foreknowledge of plans to attack American cities using planes as bombs as early as April 2001. In July of 2009, Mrs. Edmonds broke the federal gag order and went public to reveal that Osama bin Laden, Al-Qaeda, and the Taliban were all working for and with the CIA up until the day of 9/11. Number 3. The following is a quote from Mayor Giuliani during an interview on 9/11 with Peter Jennings for ABC News. "We were told that the World Trade Center was going to collapse, and it did collapse before we could actually get out of the building. So we were trapped in the building for 10, 15 minutes, and finally found an exit and got out, walked north, and took a lot of people with us." Who told them this? Number 4. In April 2004, USA Today reported, in the 2 years before the September 11 attacks, the North American Aerospace Defense Command conducted exercises simulating hijacked airliners used as weapons to crash into targets and cause mass casualties. Article number 5. World Trade Center Building number 7. A 47-story building that was not struck by anything, yet still managed to collapse. Number 6. Scores of mainstream news outlets reported that the FBI conducted an investigation of at least 5 of the 9/11 hijackers being trained at U.S. military flight schools. Number 7. Hundreds of eyewitnesses, including first responders, fire captains, news reporters, and police, all described hearing multiple explosions in both towers before and during the collapse. Number 8. An astounding video uncovered from the archive shows BBC News correspondent Jane Stanley reporting on the collapse of World Trade Center Building number 7 over 20 minutes before it actually collapsed at 5:20 p.m. on the afternoon of 9/11. Number 9. The following is a quote attributed to Dick Cheney, which came to light during the 9/11 Commission hearings. The passage is taken from testimony given by then Secretary of Transportation Norman Mineta. "During the time that the airplane was coming into the Pentagon, there was a young man who would come in and say to the Vice President, 'The plane is 50 miles out. The plane is 30 miles out.' And when it got down to, 'The plane is 10 miles out,' the young man also said to the Vice President, 'Do the orders still stand?' And the Vice President turned and whipped his neck around and said, 'Of course the orders still stand. Have you heard anything to the contrary?' Are we to take it that the orders were to let the plane find its target?" And finally, Mr. President, number 10. On April 29, 2004, President Bush and Vice President Cheney would only meet with the Commission under specific clandestine conditions. They insisted on testifying together and not under oath, and to this date, nothing they spoke of that day exists in the public domain.
Mr. President, that's all the time we have for Hollywood today.
Thank you. Well, Charlie, I can't say this hasn't been interesting.
Mr. President, you're on the right side of history.
I am on the right side. Thank you very much. My aides and I will be in touch.